Hey everyone, welcome to the Spiritual Underground podcast. This is your host, Dan, coming to you with a remote guest through the medium of Zoom, and what a blessing that is. I hated Zoom when it first came around, and I wanted to reject it. But, I see it on a daily basis today where a newcomer just last night had a family situation with children that kept him from being able to come to a live meeting, and he could still log in and participate in his recovery last night. And time after time, it gets proven. And I've been able to reach out to a lot of guests that I wouldn't have been in contact with if it wasn't for the last couple of years. Keep looking for the sunshine in the clouds, and you'll find it. Podcast is brought to you by a couple people. One of them is my little handyman woodworking business here in the Louisville metro area, DTM Woodwork and Handyman. You can contact me in multiple ways. I won't go into it here, but you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and just about any place you Google Dan Reeves in this area. Want to talk about a book. Book's called 12 Steps Spiritual Recovery. It's the same concepts that are in the hallowed blue big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's been brought forth in a manner that the 12 steps are within reach to anybody. It's kind of taken the alcoholism. We know that the 12 steps are being utilized by many, many different fellowships. One of the missing links that's never been around is for people that didn't have anything. You had to have something. You had to have an ism to fit. You had to have some kind of malady. And it's our belief that there are people suffering from the same spiritual malady that we talk about in like Alcoholics Anonymous, and they just don't have a ism to lean on, and we're welcoming those people in to use and be exposed to these 12-step tools and principles that have saved so many millions of people. So it's 12-Step Spiritual Recovery by James Christopher Cone. It can be found on Amazon. And we have local meetings here in the area, a number of them. You can go to 12stepspiritualrecovery.com, and we have a couple live meetings and a couple Zoom meetings every week here. So if you're interested in that, please join us. And it's another place where I always say it fits like three places. It's for people who don't fit in the traditional fellowships, for people who are currently in a 12-step program and maybe want a little different angle at the steps. It's the same thing as when you use the tools from multiple sponsors. You get a little different view of the work. This is another one of those. And maybe if you just, I hear this from people who, this is my opinion, who need AA, but just can't get it in AA. Well, this is a back door to the 12 steps and the same tools. And, and you don't have to go to boring old AA. If you don't want to, you come over and join us. So that's, that book is, we're really having a good time with that, sponsoring people and watching the 12-step work in air quotes, normal people's lives. Mm-hmm. And the music around this podcast is brought to you by Darren Frank, a good friend of mine. I just left his house. And one of the reasons why my guest and I had a little mix up, I'll just talk about for a second that Om symbol that's up over my shoulder is 2-inch piece of walnut. And Darren is having some difficulties. He's one of the ones that gets to the advantage of the Zoom meetings. He is stuck in a hospital bed and has been for 2 years, completely through all that. And I made this and raffled it off. And I just came from his hospital just a minute ago where we drew the name for the winner of it. And thanks to a lot of people, we raised $440 for Darren, $1,440 for Darren to help his life be as comfortable as it can be under the current conditions. So thank you, Darren, for your music, and thank you for your love and your wisdom and all that you bring. My guest today, we bounce around here, and I think it's really funny and it's interesting that I run into people now that you're out. I let them out into this plane of existence. And I first met Brandon Handley, and he has a podcast called Spiritual Dope. And we connected. And since this is a spiritual underground, he's spiritual dope. And Brandon is one of the ones who I believe got sober through other methods. and had him on my pod. We cross-pollinated, and he called me the other day and said, "Hey, I think I have somebody I think would be a great fit for your show." And sometimes we live on intuition, and that's one of the things on what's happened to us harnessing these 12-step tools is that have been granted this. With some, I think Bill's trying to say it when he says rocketed to the fourth dimension and that sixth sense and that kind of stuff. It's living on another plane, and I almost instantly know when it's like a fit or when it's not. I'll get that initial nudge, and I had not, there wasn't a heartbeat happened, and I said, sure, hook me up. And my guest today is that person. Beth, is that what you go by?
Yes, yes, sir.
Your name on the email, our first correspondence was email, and it was
Elizabeth, but I always go by Beth.
Yeah. That's we get around here and I ask people what their name is, and some people have those nicknames and full names, and
right.
Well, my name's Daniel, and I was like, oh, okay, what should I call you? Oh, it don't matter what, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, yeah, it does matter. What your friends call you, because that's what I want to call you, whatever that is, and I'm a real stickler for names. Something happened to me when I got in 12-step recovery, and I have this like Rain Man ability to remember people's names and faces.
Good for you. I'm like, what, who, huh?
I mean, there's times I sit and there's 60 people in a room, and I know every single person's first name and the vast majority of their last name. And it really has been just an unbelievable gift that I would have liked to lean on that old. I can't remember him. I'm terrible with names. Well,
I know faces, but names, it's like, oh, what?
Yeah. And it's really where I've seen it pay off and where it's worked beautiful. And I understand why the gift is what it is that when people come in and you see them a few years ago and then they disappear. And then they come back like 3 years later, 2 years later, and you can say, hey, Nick, how's it going, man? And they're blown away that you remember them, and definitely, strikes a chord in their heart, and they, one more seed in the planter for that this thing is for real.
Yeah.
So I always start off with people's sobriety date.
March 22nd, 1997. So God willing, in a few weeks, I will have a pretty decent milestone.
Yeah. 25 then, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't believe
never knew
it.
that this was going to cause me to need to do, to use math when I was coming to recovery, right? Calculate people's sobriety. They either tell you they tell you how many years it is, and you got to backdate it. I need to know, like, it was that 1982 or what was that? And they tell you when their sobriety date is, and I quickly have to do some kind of calculation on that. Well, congratulations on that. And that's a
yeah, it's crazy.
A bunch of 24 hours, as you hear.
Yes. Yeah. And if you had told me earlier in my life that I would have 25 years of sobriety, I would have been like, you're out of your freaking mind. There's no way. But here I am.
Yeah, some kind of time warp is happening. That's different. I can remember that first year and like how slow it seemed.
Oh, right.
But now it feels like it was a drop in the bucket back then. And in January, I'd celebrate 7 years, and that 7 years is like a time warp. It's there's something surreal about it. I can't even begin. It's kind of like I've used this a couple of times, is that, when you talk about people, when you talk about this program and what it's done for me, I can't fully like express that to somebody who hasn't experienced it. It's like trying to tell somebody what a strawberry tastes like. You just can't. You have to do this and experience it. And then when people that both have experienced it, we can talk and we know what each other's talking about.
Yeah.
And I do my best in this podcast to try to carry that message out to people. And it's done for me what, well, I'm a full believer in the 12th step. I think you have to do all 12 of them. I think you have to participate in all 12. And part of step 12 is carrying the message the best of your abilities. And I've been granted this unique way to do it. And I take it seriously. Where'd you grow up at?
Grew up in Rochester, New York, which is where I currently live. Right now, I'm speaking to you from a hotel room in Sin City in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm here for a dental conference. I'm a dental hygienist, and so I'm here for a professional gathering, and I get to do that today.
Yeah.
And I'm so there's a lot of drinking at these sorts of things.
Yeah, I'll
And
bet.
I'm so glad to be
That's why
sober.
they picked Las Vegas.
I'm so glad to be sober because when I drink, I am an ass. Oh my God, do I make an ass of myself? And it's so grateful to not have to wake up with a hangover and be embarrassed about, oh my God, once again, I said the wrong thing. I freaking rubbed up on the wrong guy. And, it's just, that was me. I was everyone's favorite drunk because, oh my God, Beth, you're so wild.
Yeah, right.
If you needed somebody to do something stupid, offensive, show a body part, I was your girl. I was the one that was up on the bar, blah, blah, blah. And I had to dance. I really, I love to dance, and I actually prefer an empty dance floor to dance by myself. And if some brave guy, asked me to dance, I'd sort of just dance around him. So, what this program has done for me, I realize that what I've always looked for was attention. What I want is love and approval, but it's very hard for me to accept that. It really is hard for me to accept genuine love. I can give it out, but to really accept it. And, when I was drinking, especially dancing by myself at the dance floor, that was the perfect illustration of my spirituality. I wanted you to look at me. I didn't want you to know me. I wanted to be in a glass box and have you look at me.
Yeah.
And I'm a performer. I'm an actress. I'm a singer. And I love being on stage. Give me 10,000 people and I can sing in front of them, or, a huge convention and I can speak to people.
Right.
But accepting love, that's still that one-on-one.
Yeah. I agree. I suffer from a similar malady that, and I would tell you that, and this is the truth, that I've always been helpful. I've always been caring. The fact of the matter is that wasn't effective. It's still in me. And that's the thing. I kind of like this, the spiritual malady thing. One of the things I say is like, I think everybody agrees that like we were born pure and perfect, right? When you're 2 years old.
Exactly. That baby that came out of my mother's womb on June 7th, 1962, she was perfect. But I think I probably figured out on day 3 that, okay, this is how it's going to go. My needs are not going to get met. You're on your own, sweetheart. Because I was smack in the middle of 7 kids born in 6.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Okay, those big Irish Catholic families. So, and my dad was, he was definitely a rageaholic. He wasn't, I think he was an alcoholic. He wasn't a daily drunk, but, his rage was what ruled our family. So everybody's job was to keep dad happy.
Yeah.
To try and keep dad from blowing up.
Don't wake up the monster.
Don't wake up the monsters. So we walked on eggshells. And I'm helpful too. Help, and Al-Anon, they call it the lighter side of control. I'm a helper, and I can use helping people as an addiction. I can focus so much on other people and not focus on myself.
Right. Yep.
And, sometimes a person who has that spiritual malady can take, some of the lines from the big book and, go way out with them and find themselves miserable and resentful and exhausted because, I'm only thinking of others.
Yeah.
But there's a balance there.
There is. Yeah. You can't, another line I've heard someplace along the line is I can't pour from an empty cup if I'm not taking care of me. And that's what I meant about my effectiveness of my caregiving and help, the helper that Dan is. It's just not effective. It's not the kind of help that was needed. I find myself those same traits today turned into the right
Yes,
correct, the right
exactly.
power behind them, become a beautiful thing.
Because I start out, what's God's will for me? And I have, I'm connected. I have a power greater than myself that is constantly restoring me. And so it's much easier to
Yeah.
yeah, to, but
Yep.
I still can do it. I can still get exhausted.
Right. Yeah. We what's that 10th step and things like this, that I need to continue to watch my behavior and
Mhm.
what I like to call course corrections.
Right,
One thing I'm not doing is banging off, if we're riding down
right,
the road, I'm not banging off the guardrails anymore.
right,
I'm,
right.
I'm someplace near the middle of the road. I'm keeping it on the pavement on a daily basis. Yeah. Um, do you remember how did your drinking start up? How did that develop?
Well, I would, there was, drinking was part of our family, the community
Wow.
culture,
Oh,
Irish
wow.
Catholics, lots of drinking. People drank, people got drunk. There was no social, there was no sipping. Uh, I understood from a very young age that the purpose of alcohol was to get drunk. And it looked like a lot of fun. The grown-ups, and so I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to try it. And when I was 13
People
years
were
old,
drinking looked like they were having more fun than the people that weren't drinking.
hell yeah. And so 13 years old, somebody hands me like a Miller pony and I choke it down and it's totally disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my God, the feeling when that hit me, I was like, oh, yes, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. That's why the grown-ups do this. Oh my God, I love this feeling.
Yeah. Yep. I've
And
got the cheat code.
yeah, that's why I'm an alcoholic. Other people are these sippers, these people that sip a glass of wine. And and they say, oh, I'm starting to feel it. I better stop. I'm like, what are you kidding? That's like the best part. That's when I'm starting to feel it. It's like, woohoo, let's go.
I think
That's
it's
why I'm an
interesting.
alcoholic.
Yeah, that in dynamic too, about like there was something in you, like the taste of it. You have to learn to like that stuff.
Absolutely
New people come in and they say they like the taste of bourbon, and they like, it's like, no, you
not when you first drink it.
uh,
You
and
know,
your body's telling you don't do that, right? There's a thing saying this is no good.
yeah,
There's some energy there. It's like when I first smoked my first cigarette. I'm coughing,
right.
hacking. And
But
we just
you
choke
learn how
past
to
it.
not do it, right? Oh my
Yep.
God.
And you just and most everything that's bad for me
Yeah.
comes like that.
Yeah.
I have to learn to like to do that. That's part of the addiction and the alcoholism addiction side of it, is that there was a force, whatever it was tapping me on the shoulder quietly saying shouldn't really do this.
Oh yeah, but no,
But once I pushed past that,
mhm.
because when the boys showed up and called me and wanted me to drink, some
Yep.
school friends on a school day knew my mom and
Mhm.
dad worked and said, "Why don't we get some beer and come to your house and drink it?"
Mhm.
I do recall thinking, that's probably not right,
Mhm.
but come on over because I want to be a part of it.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my God, that's just, it seemed like a good idea at the time, or against my better judgment. That's like, so as soon as I got that feeling, I wanted it as often as I could get it. But I'm also, I'm a good girl. I my role in the family was, the good girl, go to school, get the good grades. When they said jump, I said how high. I was up singing in front of the school in my little red pinafore dress. And the teachers were like, oh, Beth, is it joy in class? My two older sisters, they're alcoholics too. I always used to say my sister Mary, now that girl is a real alcoholic, let me tell you. Um, and they were riled and rebellious, and my dad beat the crap out of them. And I'm like, nope, that's not happening to me. So I was the good girl. And then that Mary and Kate would beat the crap out of me because dad was beating the crap out of them. So it's really interesting because we all have the same disease with different symptoms.
Yeah. Yep. It is such a, my sponsor has been sober quite a while too. And he is a substance abuse counselor at one of the local treatment centers. I didn't know that when I ran into him. I had heard a little bit, but I didn't know who he really was. Because it kind of, he's been working there close to 20 years now. He's touched a lot of people, including me. I am a product of that man's way about going about this work. And, at first when he's talking about, he's like, we're all cut from the same cookie cutter, but I couldn't see that for a while. Right. But
But
time
the frosting's different.
Yeah.
Same cookie, different frosting.
Different color sprinkles.
Right. And that's, so I'm a good girl. I'm a rule follower. And I had a lot of not yets when I came in. I knew alcohol was a problem. I was sober. So in 1989, my first husband and I went to meet with the priest to talk about our wedding. And I'm thinking, well, we're just going to like pick out some songs, whatever. And God bless my first husband, that guy. I set him up for, an impossible situation. I made him my higher power. And I expected him to make me happy. And that only God can do that. So, I mean, that's turning to a human, no human power, right? And of any human, he would be the least possibly qualified human.
Yeah.
But that's, so trying to
take hostages. We think we're in a relationship, but that's really not the dynamic.
I was married to him for we were together for 28 years. I was married to him for 20 years. And, it took me 13 years of sobriety to really work up the courage to leave our daughter and my daughter turning 18. So in 1989, he was my solution. He was my higher power. I had to get married. I had to marry that guy, and all my girlfriends were getting married. And what I realized is I didn't want to be married. I wanted to get married. I wanted to be a bride. I wanted to wear a great dress, get a bunch of presents, and be the center of attention.
Have everybody looking at you.
Right. And thinking somehow that ceremony was going to like magically like change, like something was going to happen.
Right. We get taught that a little bit. There's shows out there where they put the magic wand on top of your head and boom, your life is changed.
It's going to be like Cinderella.
Right. Yep.
And so we're there at this interview, this pre-Cana interview, and we're talking about different things. And the conversation gets around to my drinking. And this freaking priest gets out a pamphlet, starts asking me a bunch of those stupid questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, about those, I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Of course, yeah, I've had blackouts. So what? Did you know normal drinkers never have blackouts? Never. Social drinkers don't. They just doesn't happen to them.
Right.
I'm like, what? And so Father Peter's like, Beth, I think you're an alcoholic. I'm like, what? Oh my God. No way.
We're getting married someplace else.
I'm going to I had to get married there because it was our parish. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, oh my God, this wedding has to happen. So, all right, it's Lent. Oh, and today's Ash Wednesday, by the way. But I'll give up alcohol for Lent and it'll be fun. So I was, dry as kindling for about 6 months in 1989.
Right. I'll show you. I'm not an alcoholic. Watch this.
My own wedding, right, in 1989 was probably the only wedding I was sober at in the 80s. Well, I loved weddings. They were free drunk. And, before I got married, I was jealous of the bride. And then after I got married, I felt sorry for her. So dry as kindling for about 6 months in 1989. And, I going to meetings and that first step, I couldn't get the second half of the first step. I had no idea what it meant for a life to be unmanageable. I could maybe admit that I was powerless over alcohol, but I missed the disease. Powerless, I still was interpreting back then as like a willpower thing. I wasn't getting, like, I didn't understand what I was saying before about, like, that's why I'm an alcoholic. Because when I drink, that feeling, oh my God, other non-alcoholics don't get that feeling.
Yeah.
Alcohol doesn't do for them what it does for alcoholics. So, I couldn't admit that my life was unmanageable because, again, I thought manageability was about consequences.
Mm.
And, I hadn't had a lot of consequences. So, I got married, and, God bless it. You get married. I got married. So April 8th, we got married. April 9th, I woke up and I was the same. It was me. I was the same. The hell, so now I'm married to this guy and he's like not doing it. He's not doing what he's supposed to do. He's not making me happy.
Yep. Not holding up his end of the deal.
Yeah. And he was,
the deal he didn't know he made.
Right. The deal that he didn't know he made is right. And he was, and our dance was, he was controlling and critical, and I was obedient and secretly rebellious. Like, and that was, so unhealthy. What a unhealthy basis for a relationship. Yeah. Like, okay, I'll do what he says when he's around, but then I'm like sneaking around, smoking behind his back and doing all this shit. And every time we went out and I got drunk, oh, did I make an ass of myself and him? And he's the kind of person that's very much concerned with how he is perceived.
What we look like, yeah.
So, it was like a running joke with everybody. And we had these friends, that thought it was great fun when I got drunk, to egg me on.
Yeah.
To make fun of him. And that poor man, I would rip him up one side and down the other, expose all kinds of information about him that was inappropriate and unnecessary. And then the next, and they're all laughing. That awful liquored up laughter.
Yeah, I hate it today.
Yeah, and all these things that we thought were so funny. Yep. It makes me sick now to think about it.
Yeah, I can be around drinking. That's not a problem. But when the drinking turns into that, it's time for me to change location.
Yeah, I don't even like to actually be around a lot of drinking.
Yeah, I don't like to be around a lot of it, but I can do that. And I find myself in situations where these normal people are actually drinking normal, but there's always a couple around, and a couple of us around who are not there yet. And so right. Yeah, situations are just like, I don't know, they're a time bomb kind of feeling where, sooner or later this situation is going to go wrong, and I want to be as far away from it as I possibly can.
Right. But you see these people, like you just watch them. I mean, it's like, dude, really?
What? Yeah, you think about that, getting into, and I would have, it took me a little bit to start getting these concepts into my brain. I think that's everybody, but it's for me. And this thing about now knowing like how nobody had a chance to be in a decent relationship with me. Mm-hmm. I was at a disadvantage from the beginning. Now I wouldn't, I had no idea about that.
Yeah, but, it wasn't modeled for me. I don't know what it is.
Like when somebody new comes in, and one of the surprising things, we were talking in the beginning about death, and I never knew death like I know death today. Somebody 1, 2, 3 degrees away from me dies every week.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is like this deal where when one member of a party gets sober, that's usually the end of the relationship.
Oh yeah.
You kind of get the feeling that when one of them got sober, then the problem will be fixed, and they could move right on out into the sunset, because the problem's fixed. But that is not what happens.
Oh no, that's exactly what happened in my first marriage. Was he would criticize me a lot for my drinking, and so I stopped. I got sober in 1997. And actually, when you were talking about the back door,
so what year did you get married? That's like a 10-year period or something, right?
Yeah, 89. I got married in 89, but I started dating him in 1982. So all those years with him, and I didn't get and stay sober until 1997. And but the back door. So I started going to Al-Anon because I was from an alcoholic family. Yeah. All these people that these normies that, need the 12 steps. If you go back in their family history, you almost 99 times out of 100 will find that there's alcoholism, even if it's a few generations removed, because those family behavior patterns those generational patterns get passed down.
Yep.
So, so I was going to Al-Anon because I really I'm like, look, I need to fix these people.
Yeah. I'm not the problem. They are.
I'm not the problem. They're the problem. So, I was going to Al-Anon, and then we had yet another episode where Beth gets drunk, and this time we were at home at our house, and our friends. I made dinner. Friends came over. They brought wine, and it was one of those things. When I look back on it, that it was very obvious to everybody that I was really drunk. But you don't think you're that bad?
Yeah.
So slurring my words, knocking over glasses, and then the next day I'm all hungover, writing in my journal. My journal was pages and pages of self-pity, blah 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 blah, blame, self-pity and blame, and analysis, lots of analysis, because I'm smart. And oh my God, these journals, it's all about like analyzing what everybody else thinks. It's hilarious. So
it is unreal how we,
oh my God.
And I still suffer from that at some level. I don't
absolutely.
I don't see me very well. I got to have some guys around me that'll help me see me.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I didn't see me either.
Nope. So we
saw you.
So he's my husband, and I'm all hungover, and he's like, Beth, I really don't think you should drink anymore. And I was like, I was gonna say like, oh fuck you, you don't just don't want me to have any fun. And I was gonna say that, and I remembered something I'd heard in church. See, I knew I was looking for that peace and serenity. I was going to this church, and something I heard in church, Father Paul said, God comes to us through other people. And I realized, and I said to my husband, which I never ever said to him, was, I think you're right. And so the next Wednesday, going to my Al-Anon meeting, and there's the AA meeting next door. So I go up to the young man who's greeting at the meeting, doing his service. I said, I don't think I'm an alcoholic. Do you think I'm an alcoholic? I don't think I'm an alcoholic. He's like, well, we could step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Gotta go by. And I was just about to leave, and who walks up? So that house that we flew over today, that I flew over and was able to see, I'm at the door, and who walks up but the guy that lives in the next house? And the guy that lives in the next house from him, Brian and Chris. I'm like, what are you doing here? Are you guys coming to the meeting? Are you guys alcoholics? And they said, well, yeah. And I said, I think I should be in here too. Come on, man. 30 seconds. That guy gave me permission. I was out of there.
Yep. Eskimos.
Yep. And so I walked in that meeting. I did drink one more time, back in Rochester, of course, but and that was March 22nd, 1997.
That's cool. I like that story. I have a similar thing where I was in a lot of trouble and was walking. I went to church to do a Growing God's Kids Way because it would make my wife happy.
Mm-hmm.
Happy wife, happy life. And I would drink on the way there from work. And then what would happen is I was in there for 3 or 4 hours and couldn't drink really, so
right.
And then you go in there. So I'm pacing the hallway during an admission, wondering if I should go out to the truck and try to down one real quick, or would they notice? And I walked around the corner, and there was a guy I worked with standing outside these double doors. And something in me wanted to dive in the nearest broom closet. I mean, that's what I felt. And but it was too late. And he said, hey Dan, hey man, hi, what are you doing here? And I told him same thing I just told you. My wife makes me come to this goofy growing kids God's way thing. What are you doing here? And he said, oh, I'm waiting for the AA meeting to start. And I work with
Oh my God.
and I can remember plain. He said that, and it was like a gong hit me in the head. His lips kept moving, but I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't hear anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, but one more line came through, and it was, I've been sober for 24 years, but I still go to meetings regularly. And that was another gong, and I didn't hear anything else as I stumbled down the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
That was, a couple of little did I know a few weeks later, I'd be looking for an AA meeting and knew where one was at.
Wow.
That normal people went to, right?
Right.
This guy
Right.
was normal.
Right.
I could tell.
Oh my God.
Yep. It is so cool.
And the thing is, I've always, I love the spirituality of the program, and I could talk about a loving God and how God works in me and through this program all day long.
Yeah.
And I always believed in God, always. Grew up Catholic. There's still a lot about my church, my religion that I love. A lot of the, the saints, the Blessed Virgin, all those things. But I always believed in God, but I didn't think that God believed in me. I was exactly like the person they're talking about in the 12 and 12 in step 2, religious, but still drinking.
Yeah.
Full of religion and reeking of alcohol. And, that prayer of St. Francis, which I call the codependence anthem. I really wanted to live that prayer. And we talked about it before. I was running around helping and finding myself exhausted and resentful.
Yeah.
And what's happened over time is that I absolutely believe in God, and I absolutely believe that God is love. And religion is okay for some people, but talks about the idea of God is in every man, woman, and child. Okay, but it's not just an idea, it is literally God. God is in every man, woman, child. And unfortunately, we have all these, they're character defects, defense mechanisms. Like we talked about that little baby girl that was born on June 7th. And I had to learn, in order to survive, I had to learn these survival techniques. And what those survival techniques did was block me away from this God spirit that's already in me, in me.
Faulty programming.
Yes.
Poured into us.
What the steps do is they remove that. And then that God comes out.
Yeah. And
it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to watch it happen with, doing a fifth step with another alcoholic. I've had such beautiful experiences with women I sponsor. This one girl she was talking about, she felt so dirty. I said, sweetheart, is it okay? Go to the kitchen and get a washcloth and get it wet and bring it back here. Mm-hmm. And we sat on the couch and I washed her face. Mm. And I said, sweetheart, you're clean. You've always been clean, but in the name of God right now, you are clean. And look at me. It was so amazing, so powerful. And, I feel bad for people that can't seem to get that. Yeah. And people that are turned off by religion, and religion is not God. Right. Religion is people. And when you talk to people who hate religion, you can almost always bring it back to some person, some human, some priest, some nun, some pastor, somebody.
Yep. One of the things we do, and part of this way my sponsor does it is while we're dealing with step 3 early on, we do a God inventory, you know, and we look at that kind of stuff, and you can usually, you usually can find if you that the stuff that you hate about religion is come from somebody who has had faulty teaching.
Yeah, they had faulty programming and they pressed it on.
They were nobody to look up to in the first place. So if you ask the question that we ask, did that person have a spiritual walk that would be something you was attractive to you that you wanted? And you'd say no. And yet I've been carrying around their bullshit for years when it was, I knew that wasn't what I wanted in the first place.
Right. And God, so part of my, part of my spiritual malady is using sex to get love. And so if I relate to men only sexually, and God's a man in the sky, how's that going to work? Right. So again, there's that man. I wanted that love so much, but I couldn't feel it. And I feel it today. And that's why I cry, because it feels really that it's relief. It's relief. And it's a miracle. I have a disease, just like freaking diabetes or epilepsy. Alcoholic is the term. A person with diabetes is a diabetic. A person with epilepsy is an epileptic. A person with alcoholism is an alcoholic. My body doesn't process alcohol the way a normal person's does. And I happen to have a bunch of spiritual maladies to go along with it. And I'm so grateful that I am an alcoholic, because that gave me the opportunity to do what I'm doing right now, to heal.
Right. Yeah. Yep. It is. It's that about the healing comes in where the wound is, I had to have the brokenness in order to be able to.
Exactly. That's why, a lot of people who haven't been broken enough, I don't think they really want it, but you gotta fucking break, man. Something has to.
Yep. I find myself when new people come around and I'll ask them what happened that got them here, because they didn't just come on a Tuesday and decide to go.
Right. Oh, I'm gonna come to AA. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
And the bigger it is, the more excited I get, because I know there's a better chance for him. If he just got in a fight with his wife last night, that's probably not going to do it.
Right.
But if he got his kids are taken away because he got a DUI while he was driving around with them last night, that might be getting into some neighborhood where we can do something. Right. Now there's exceptions. There's these lovely people that, because of this program, also has raised the bottom up where people are able to access it.
That's me.
Gone as far.
That's me. I had, when I first came in the program, I wasn't happy about it at all. I didn't want to not drink. I didn't want to be an alcoholic. And I'm sitting in meetings hearing people talk about they lost this, they lost that. I'm like, I didn't lose my job. I'm trying to lose my husband. It won't freaking go. So finally somebody, this is a good story too. It was early on and I was at the meeting after the meeting. And, talking about, well, I guess if I'm an alcoholic, maybe I'm a high bottom because blah, blah, blah. Because I don't know. I think my life is perfectly manageable. And thank God for this guy who had a little big book, the little ones, flips it open to page 52 and starts, no, Beth, this is what unmanageability is. A feeling of uselessness, full of fear, can't control my emotional nature. I'm like, oh my God, that's what that is.
Yep, I thought personal relationships.
Yeah. Trouble with personal, Yep.
Bing, 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 bing.
Thank God for that. And you know what? Not long after that, I got my own little big book and I have it. It comes everywhere with me. And it's all falling apart now. It's so great.
Beautiful.
Oh, and
out big book.
And my first sponsor, Margie, she was from Oklahoma. And she said, now, Beth, you don't have to take that truck all the way to the dump. I'm like, oh.
I haven't heard that one.
Right? You don't have to go all the way to the basement. You can get off the elevator anytime. I'm like, oh my God. So, and all these things that I never did that. The longer I'm sober, the more I realize, whoops, yeah, I did. If I didn't do it literally, I certainly did it figuratively.
Yep. Or escaped it by inches.
I hear these women, there was this one girl crying about, her shame being a prostitute in a meeting. I'm like, girl, please, at least you got paid. I used to freaking give it away. And you didn't have to buy me drinks if I was drunk already. God, at least you got paid. I'm like, girl, sweetheart, we're all whores, okay? It's just
Yep.
So,
and you were saying that thing, and that's another like that high bottom thing. Now I know that what I was doing, just like when them guys asked me if we could drink some beer at my house today, it was that in that line, the fellowship I crave, right? The whole time I'm craving this fellowship and not knowing how to get it. And the alcohol was would get that fellowship, and I could be on a basketball team with a bunch of guys, but I couldn't feel like I was really on the team.
Yeah.
And once the alcohol, we felt like we were, we were
right. Oh my God. And it's fake.
Unit,
it's fake. It's not real.
Yep.
Oh.
And then you know what I do? I walk in the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, wanting fellowship, and the first thing I start doing is telling you how I'm different.
Right, exactly. But
myself, I am terminally unique.
Terminally unique.
I'm in here going, oh, I'm a high bottom.
Oh my God, hilarious.
And,
yeah,
it's just interesting that little thought has come just recently about how much I wanted to be a part of, and every alcoholic comes in the door saying they're not a part of, and they walk in the door and start telling you about how they're different.
Isn't it hilarious? It's like you can just see it, you can spot it. I mean, and the longer I stay around, I've seen it. I've seen people come in and go out, and nobody has ever come skipping back into a meeting like, hi everybody, just wanted to let you know it's like really great out there.
Great out there, yeah.
It's great out there.
Come on, it's great.
It's wonderful.
Nope, they come dragging their shoestrings in the door, looking at their feet.
Or they die.
Or they've died. Yep.
So, I'm so just really glad that first of all, I'm really glad that you and I crossed paths. This is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And this is what I love about, one alcoholic talking to another. Yep. That's what Bill and Bob did.
Yep.
Exactly. And how miraculous was that whole meeting?
Yep. The cards that had to fall in place.
Yes. Oh my God.
Things happen.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that's happened in my life too, right? So once I get to, usually used the word miracle earlier. Bill says in there, my ideas about miracles were revised. Right?
Yes, drastically.
And mine have been too, and I have a list in my phone. I started it on paper because things were happening to me. And my sponsor said, you should write those things down because it's going to happen and they're going to keep coming and you're going to forget about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I took that advice and he don't remember giving it to me.
Right.
But I have a miracle list in my telephone today, and it's virtual and it's still growing. I add things to it. These things where you might look at it. That's another thing, a little concept I've been chewing on lately about how bad luck alcoholics have. They have an awful luck, I
just got some bad luck. Yeah, a lot of bad luck,
I think, I'm pretty dang lucky right now,
right?
This thing, my luck has changed,
Yes.
That's not it. What you're doing is you got your sails set in a direction in the past where it's going upstream. You're going against the flow of life. You're in that same thing about, you ain't supposed to be drinking as much as you're drinking. And once I was able to get my sails casted around to where it was in my true north, in my path, all of a sudden the luck changes and the winds are carrying me in the direction I need to be carried. And that's not always the direction I'm aiming at, but when it's not, it's usually better than what I could have picked. Right. That's
absolutely.
So I get in the wind and let it take me and ask him every day, ask this power that I have no idea really what it is. Cause more time I get, the less I know.
And, isn't that the truth? I knew everything my first year. I wore a crown on my my first year, and I made my own cake, wore a crown to the meeting.
Yeah. Right.
And because I knew everything.
Yep. It is. That's a great thing. I love that, from that knowing cup is empty today. You know, I have some cups in my life, and I can keep what I know, what I think I know. I can keep that cup fairly short and then stick to the things I do know, because I know how to turn wood into a beautiful piece of furniture.
Mhm.
I know how to do some things like that, and I know what I know there. But in this spiritual realm, show me, you know,
Yeah.
I'm ready to see another miracle.
Mhm.
But in the self-help into things in that cup and how I take care of myself, I also know I have to keep that cup pretty full, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm unable to pour into other people and sponsor and do the things like that and take care of my kids. And my 84-year-old father lives with me. It's a wonderful thing. And with my cup full on that, because I spend time taking care of Dan.
Mhm. And taking care. So women especially, self-care. I'm like, it's not a mani-pedi, sweetheart. Okay. I can have beautiful nails and still hate myself.
Yeah,
It is about opening up my heart to the love of God. All
right.
right. And that is self-care. The care, turning my will and my life over to the care of a God of my understanding who loves me.
Yeah.
And even after all this time, like I said in the beginning, that idea that I am loved, that I accepting love, it's a much easier now than it was. And but
That
it's still.
accepting things, there's another little concept, this thing about like being able to receive this. You know, we say one thing,
Mhm.
like, and my
Being
sponsor
able
said
to
something at a
receive.
meeting the other night, he always comes off with stuff that just and it may not sound so big now, but the time that I'm actually begin to like say I'm gonna accept help, you know,
Mhm.
my mouth is saying that.
Right.
From the point when I turned it, I'm actually doing that. You know,
Right.
I'm actually am receiving, open up that receiving channel and receiving the help they're giving me, because I could sit up there and mouth it all day long and not accept a single thing. You know, I could look like
Exactly.
and I did that. I came into
Exactly.
AA in 2011 and got a 1-year chip, and I could talk the lingo and I could quote big book stuff, you know, but I really had my walls still up all the way around me.
Yep.
And I drank again, right?
Yep.
That's what happens when we do it that way, you know. And that's another thing about some, you know, some dynamic about this is that, you know, I have to do it wrong a number of times
Mhm.
before I can actually start doing something that reasonably resembles right. Uh, you know, and I want to kick around the new people that come in. My brain does, Dan. You know, it's the same thing with the devil and the angel kind of thing. You know, they're still kind of doing this, and it's the thing is, I just don't listen to the one on my left shoulder as much anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it still says, you know, look at that stupid dude. He can't get sober. He's come in here, you know, and then I go, oh yeah, Dan, you did that too, brother. You were
Mhm.
you. I say I bounced off the halls and walls of AA for 4 years actually, and I'm really feel blessed that it was only 4 uh, until the right teacher came into my life, you know, until the student's ready, the teacher will appear, and then I was able to receive that, you know, and it pans out into this other thing about living on this plane. You know, I'm real careful to not block the receiving channel of the universe, no
Mhm.
matter how small a thing it is. If it's something I don't want, right? If somebody brings me something that I don't want, I try to receive that, because I don't want to tie a knot in that receiving channel that's coming to me, you know. And
Mhm.
you know, if somebody's bringing me a gift for any reason whatsoever, it's my job to receive it. Period. Don't matter if you don't like peanut butter cookies. If they bring some over, take them.
Right.
And
And sometimes things
keep
are
that channel open.
gifts and things that sometimes a gift doesn't feel like a gift. Like I have this I lower back pain. I have this, my freaking lower back is a disaster, and I had horrible sciatica, and I've had to quit a bunch of my quit my jobs, and but now that I have time, I'm not working. I'm able to meet people like Brandon, who introduced me to you. I'm able to meet people like Neo Positivity, who introduced me to Brandon, who introduced me to you.
Hmm.
So none of this never would have happened if I was still, in the grind.
Yeah. If you had your way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's another one of these weird concepts that's underneath of this thing. And people say it all the time, you know, my way didn't work. Let's try another way, and anytime somebody comes in and they think I kind of giggle about it. I try to make this fun too. Most people that are around me seem to be having fun. And, the guy says, well, I think I need to go to this treatment center. And I say, well, I'll bet you $100 that ain't the one you need to go to. Goes, why not? I said, because that's the one you want to go to. This thing doesn't work. You got to go to a different thing. You got to do something different. You can't, my ideas weren't working. I need to pick up some ideas from somebody else.
Well, and treatment is awesome, but Bill figured it. Bill found out knowledge is great, but it's not enough. First, he found out that willpower isn't enough. Then he found out that knowledge isn't enough. Then, Ebby came to see him, and Ebby told him about have you read any of that, any literature from the Oxford groups? They didn't screw around. Okay. Yep. They were hardcore.
Yeah. Yep.
So Ebby carries the message to Bill, and, look how long it took Bill to find somebody to connect with.
Yep.
I forget what my train of thought was, but
my time frame either. That's another thing that this
well, we can't think.
I have to let go of is the time.
Yeah, you can't think yourself sober. It's not about. And I'm smart, right? I'm an intellectual. I can analyze, but I can't think myself. It's not about thinking. Yeah. If knowledge worked, if intellectual into it, it talks about philosophical practices galore.
Fact of the matter is, some of the people
philosophy of living. Those things don't work.
Yeah, I truly believe that some of the smartest people I know are alcoholics.
Right?
It's not a matter of how smart I am.
No.
As a matter of fact, it sometimes works against you.
I used to say that you can't be too dumb to get this program, but you can be too smart.
Yeah.
Because you're always, then that was a big problem for me when I very first came in, was wanting to pick it apart and analyze. And so, I heard analyze, don't utilize, don't analyze, utilize.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I need a notepad, but of course I get to listen to this as many times as I want, because I love all these little sayings that pop out, and some of them are universal, it seems, but by doing this, I end up catching some I haven't heard, and then we go on talking and I forget completely. Some of them stick. Yeah. You were talking about sponsorship earlier. Was your first sponsor the one that stuck, that actually was that your match?
So my first sponsor was Little Margie and she was in Colorado. She was from Oklahoma and Colorado Springs. When I moved away from Colorado Springs, she and I talked on the phone, but she didn't play. And if we had a phone appointment and I didn't make it, she's like, no, that's not happening.
I don't play either.
Yeah, she let me go. She's like, you know what? I'm enabling you. That's not working for me.
Yep.
So I've had a series, and that's, part of my problem. It's been more of a problem lately, is not reaching out to my sponsors.
Oh, really?
Just time going by, not having regular contact with my sponsors. So that's
Yep. Well, that's the thing. That's what we do. We course correct. I
got a course
inventory what I'm doing or not doing, and get back on track.
Yep.
Yeah.
So thanks for the reminder.
Whatever happened with I had a sponsor right out of the gates, like I said, and I got that 1 year token, but it was a cheat because I was still smoking a little dope here and there, and didn't really count that because I really never had a problem with marijuana. And
it was the only drug I never liked. I loved all the rest of them.
Yeah. And I had these wonderful teachers around me in that 4 year period, and people who probably were capable of delivering the message every bit as effective as my sponsor now, the one that I got sober with. But for whatever reason, and then we say these terms, which, that's, again, it's this speak that doesn't really work, that I wasn't ready yet. Right. I just wasn't ready yet. And then when this guy walked in my life, I started hearing something being talked in a way that was just hitting me, it was pinging on me. The way he talked and the way the messages and the things he was talking about, which a lot of times were not really about drinking. It was about this other faulty thinking stuff.
Yes.
I heard a guy sometime or another talk about that 20 questions about drinking.
Right.
Substitute thinking for it, and it works.
Right. Oh, yes. I've heard that too.
Yeah. Did you ever, were you ever late for work because you think too much?
You were thinking, right? Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Or in a blackout because you're thinking, hello, have you ever been like driving? And I'm like, I used to be, musing, what's that word that cows do? Ruminating over some resentment. It's like, all of a sudden it's like 20 miles went by.
Yep.
Wait, what?
Lost.
Where'd it go?
Yeah. And so I continue, and what has happened over time is like he and I are now our best friends. But he has this deal, he can, and I almost can feel it happening where the sponsor hat gets put on, and I have to accept that. That's part of our friendship, right? I have to allow that, and there's some people that talk about, I've heard people toss around stuff about like, you shouldn't really like your sponsor and you shouldn't,
right.
And I understand what they're saying there. There's another guy I literally love listening to. His name is Scott L. And, he kids about that, I was looking for a sponsor I could relate to, and he jokes about that's not what's going to work. You need somebody that, what I related to was drinking 12-pack of beer a night. And but it's worked very well. And then the flip side of that is that, a couple real simple little concepts, when something's not working, stop. When something is working, keep doing it. Right.
Right.
And the real easy concepts. I couldn't seem to get that until lately. Until I work these steps. But and I try to model that with my sponsees. And God has put a bunch of wonderful people in my path. I'm blessed with that. And these guys are some of my best friends. And they get. But the flip side of that is like early on, and I start to notice this, that, I have to keep an arm's length for a little bit emotionally. You can't get emotionally attached too much, too early in a way. Like one of my sponsees recently, we had a guy die and he was sponsoring him, and this guy just celebrated a year sober. He's doing everything. He's great doing everything he's supposed to be doing. And this kid, OD, he come back from 5 months of treatment and didn't make it. I don't know. He was home a couple weeks and just crushed my guy, and which I understand. Right. But this mental, and I'm not doing this on purpose about this arm's length. This guy's death has made me think about that I am slow to get close to the new people because I'm afraid they're going to die.
Yeah. It's a legit fear.
Yep. And, but once I get, like I said, when I work, because you open up, I've learned to open up so much, and my relationship with my sponsor is frankly intimate. There's nothing I can't say and talk about him with, and know that I'm not going to be judged. I may get the sponsor hat,
right?
But I'm not going to get judged for that. And that big book says that you must be honest with somebody if you to live long and happily.
Exactly.
I had to have somebody that's separate. We were talking the other night about dad issues. One of my friends, we were kind of got brought up in our meeting. We'll talk about stuff that maybe some meetings might think is outside issues.
Right.
That's another reason why I love my men's home group, is there really are no outside issues. We talk about what we need to concerning our recovery. That's the relationship with our Father. That's what we talk about. And that got to talking, and the one guy, when he was signing off, he said, stay tuned next week, mommy issues. And I have a wonderful relationship with my dad. Wonderful. It has always been that way. Mom would say that your father liked nothing better than to lay on the floor and play with you boys. And he modeled all that, he modeled the love for my mother, who has since passed, and like I had this perfect role model.
Wow.
I couldn't follow. I was unable to follow what he was demonstrating.
Mm,
for whatever reason. Now some people don't have that story. Some people have, like you talked about, that was
right,
not modeled in your family.
right. Dysfunction.
Yeah. And that dysfunction, and not that this is exactly right, but some people can hang their hat on that being a catalyst for what we have. Now, I fully believe there's a genetic component to this. You had talked about that earlier. But one of the things that when I was hearing people tell me this kind of stuff early on, it was one of my terminally unique things that, nope, I have a great relationship with my
Right,
father,
right.
and even though it is great, I'd still picked up traits that weren't serving me.
Mm-hmm,
Some things like my perfectionism.
mm-hmm,
I need to impress him.
mm-hmm,
Everything I do needs to impress him. And I
mm-hmm.
carry that out here to you too. So I must also have your acclamation. I need you to hold me into a high spot too,
Right,
and
exactly. Well, that we talked about that at the beginning, approval.
yeah,
And if I
your
could,
approval.
what I really wanted was love and acceptance, but I would settle. I wanted approval, but I would settle for attention.
Yep.
And
And
that vulnerability that when I'm crying tears of joy, that vulnerability is so amazing, and it feels so. I love that.
yeah,
I love, um, you know,
Brene Brown really drove that. Listening to her, you know who she is.
yes.
uh, her talk on vulnerability for whatever reason made it in the crack,
Mm-hmm.
where I couldn't really understand what it was. For a man, it's kind of a weakness thing.
Oh, right.
And she was the one that really hammered home. And that's another thing I love about the group that I'm in, is that people do get vulnerable. It's not unusual for tears to be shed in our weekly home group meeting. It's
It's
actually
wonderful.
common. Yeah, I know.
Tears cleanse the soul. T- um, what do I've said this, sometimes you have a spiritual tears. Sometimes you can think of them as spiritual pus. We got a freaking infection in here and we're crying and it's draining.
Yep, it is. It's a
But,
cleansing thing.
but the tears that I was shedding earlier in our conversation, my wounds have drained pretty well. The tears that I was shedding earlier in our conversation, this feeling is indescribable. Just this combination of joy, like unspeakable joy, that all I can do is cry.
Yeah.
And it's just the most wonderful feeling.
There's certain lines and stuff, and I still do it, and it's kind of almost giggle at myself. There's nothing that I do that fulfills me to the level of when I'm working through that book with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
There really isn't, and then you said something about that wash rag thing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to bet that was something that just landed in your lap. God gave you that at the moment. You wouldn't have
right.
what to do
Exactly.
with it.
At the moment, it was
not
like,
really you. It looked like you.
right. It was not my idea. That was God working through.
When that happens, that is just, like I said, that's what I mean about fulfilling me. And what the deal is it happens to me more times than not, because my motives are where they're supposed to be, and I'm doing God's work, and I'm in alignment. I'm in my true north alignment. And to sit and talk to somebody and be handed these gifts like that, like, in the beginning, a guy will think I'm a genius, right? Then I always say, this is not me, man. This is because I left to my own devices. I'm something else.
Right.
This is the power of this program. This is the power
exactly.
I keep talking to you about. And that's another kind of a weird concept, because we talk about powerlessness, right?
Right.
Fact of the matter is, for me, at least in my estimation, is that what has happened is that I have harnessed this power, right? Lack of power is the limit.
Yeah.
I am no longer powerless.
Right.
Powerless over a lot of things, though. And I fall back in fallback position when I think I'm a victim because of something. And, I still experience powerlessness in my life on a regular basis, but the amount of power I have, it's kind of like so much of this stuff is that dichotomy kind of the surrender to win,
Yep.
lack of power, but today yet I'm more powerful than I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
And some of it comes through my delivering this message to people. Some of it comes through my ability to walk somebody through that work. It's maybe more powerful in my day to day, even when I'm carving on wood, right?
Oh, when I'm working on people in the dental office, when I'm seeing dental patients, I absolutely, have the power to, to help these people feel better, people who are afraid, people who, have been judged and shamed and traumatized, to help them understand, look, you're not a bad person. Okay, I'm going to help you through this.
Yeah, we that whole deal about, I'm not a bad person trying to get good. I'm a sick person trying to get well.
Right.
And that disease thing, what we're actually blessed that we have this disease, that we have the possibility to put it in permanent remission.
Permanent remission, exactly. One day at a time.
That is offered to me. I can also decline that.
Right.
Cancer patient doesn't have that.
Right, exactly.
Diabetic doesn't have that.
Right.
Any of the mental illness, other mental illnesses, because I believe this is a mental illness. And I do have a little tap on my shoulder someplace that thinks that the 12 steps will work for just about anything. I could be wrong.
Right.
But if it works for this mental illness, why would it not work for this mental illness? And I think I can say, at least I'll put it on the table. I have a firm belief that if you work these steps and practice these principles in your daily life, your life is going to get better. I think I can guarantee you that.
Yes, exactly.
Now, to what degree, I don't know.
Right.
But I can guarantee a guy's life is going to get better.
I agree.
There's some, I've watched some exceptions to that occasionally. And I don't know what's going on there. My mind wants to tell me that there's some hole someplace that's not being filled. And that's why this guy's not receiving the same level of gifts as I received. There's almost like it gets into a little survivor guilt kind of thing,
Exactly. Yes.
And I have a few people in my life around me now. We have a friend who's in prison right now. And I don't understand how he got thrown in prison after he got sober. It's not adding up, and I feel like there's a piece of the puzzle that I'm not aware of, and it very well could be because God wants him in prison because he's going to do something there, right? That I'm not privy to. So, I leave the judgment on the table, but when I see something like that happen, I will want to ask myself, like, why does that guy have to be there? And quickly remember that I'm violating step 3, that I'm not in management anymore. It is not my job to decide why, where, who is doing what. That's
well,
not.
And we tend to think of God as like a really nice person, and God is not a person. God is not human. God is a spirit, and when God's looking at us, you and me here in the Zoom meeting, and then your friends in prison, it's like when I was flying in that airplane today, like God sees that whole thing all the time. And so, and here we are, like, in our little.
Yeah. Got our microscope out.
Yeah. And that's the difference between God and us. If
there's a term, I can't remember what it is, but it's when we place these human emotions into animals. I can't remember.
Something like personalization or personification. Yeah.
Yes, we do that with God. We put them in human form because that's what we understand.
Right. And that's what religion is.
Treat our cat like it's a person because that's our frame of reference.
Right.
People.
Right.
That's interesting. You made me think of that. We try to make God human.
Right. And God's not human. And that's.
Yeah. It's just a bell ringer kind of thing that hit me as you were talking about that.
And today I've learned to look for, God comes to me through other people for sure, but also through coincidence and through if an animal shows up to me, like that freaking eagle behind you. That's my spirit animal.
Is it?
Yes. If an animal.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me.
Like a, if I see an animal in such a way that it presents itself, like one time I pulled up to the, my mailbox and there was a robin sitting right on the mailbox, looking me straight in the eye. Now that to me, that's a message. That's God talking to me through that robin. And I go to my little spirit animal book and I look up, the animal totem for a robin, and it's always right on. That there's a message there. And so that's been,
I hold similar beliefs and do the same thing.
So that's, however God needs to get the message to me, it's going to get through.
Yeah.
If I keep my eyes open.
Yeah, like old Chuck C's book, A New Pair of Glasses.
Yes, I love that book.
Put them on, right?
Yep.
I have to put them on, and it's one of the things of that the value of my sponsor being able to help me see through those glasses, because there was quite a few times that something happened, and we kind of joked about it for a while. It's kind of, since we've been around each other so long, it's kind of fell out of age. But he'd say, "You know what that is, don't you?" And I would want to sit here and be intellectual and say, well, I think this is blah, 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 blah. And, one of the times he's, and we have this relationship that's beautiful, but he said, shut up, newcomer. He goes, when your sponsor asks, you know what that is, don't you? Your response should be, say, no, sponsor. Why don't you tell me? And so it started to be a little banter where I would catch myself and I'd say, you know what that is? I'd say, no, sponsor. Why don't you tell me? And then that did things where I was seeing things in completely different light. I have a huge one, and I worry about telling stories over and over again, because see, my guests are all fresh to me for the most part. And the audience hear the same old story all day. But it's in my relating to my guest. And I got caught breaking into houses stealing pain pills. That was my eventual bottom. And I was looking at 6 to 20 years in prison.
Wow.
And looking back, I don't think I'd ever got that. But at the time, the people around me, my lawyer, the judge, the prosecutor, the people around me had me believing that was a real good possibility to land in someplace in there. And I just couldn't do that. I could not see myself doing that. I was hoping I'd have a chance to check out. I was thought about suicide rather than go to, and that happened in June of 2014, and my sobriety date is January of 2015. So I had a 6-month period after getting arrested that I still couldn't get the deal that I was going to have to stop. I had those consequences laying on my shoulders, and I still couldn't stop.
Right. Oh, right.
And well, finally ended up, after God doing some things for me that I couldn't do for myself, they offered me a home incarceration sentence. 1 year home incarceration, a year of probation, and the 3 years, but the third one will be suspended if I successfully completed the first 2. And but they weren't going to let me stay in this house because I got caught breaking into a house across the street. And the neighborhood, I violated security of the neighborhood, and they didn't want me around. And they were some of the people going down talking to the prosecutor about Dan needs to go to prison, go away for a while. We don't feel safe with him around.
Wow.
And, my mom was also a pill addict. And I really don't know how to place that. I know that it started out being dependence because of, and I know I see this, and this gets in the way of this genetic. And sometimes people will talk about the difference between an addict and alcoholic. I don't really monkey with it much, but she had a real use for pain pills through her life, but she became to be dependent on it, which looked a lot like addiction. So I'm not really sure where that falls, and I don't microscope that. Fact of the matter was, I thought my mom was done. She was off of them because she knew what was going on with me, and she tried to stop. And the consequences happening in her life wasn't great enough, just like it wasn't in my life, to make me stop. And I was supposed to cut that deal with them. They were going to let me do home incarceration at mom and dad's house. So at 45 years old, I was going to move into mom and dad's spare bedroom and serve my year of home incarceration. And I was okay with that, and mom and dad were okay with that too. But the day I went over there to move in and start moving in, about a week before my formal sentencing, I went over to start cleaning up the bedroom, and mom had a jar of pills sitting next to her. And I saw that posture and the chin down on her chest, and saw the pill, and I panicked because I knew I was not going to be able to stay sober in that house, not with those pills around. I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I panicked. And I left, and Dad's like, oh, where are you going? And I'm like, I got to go. See you later. And over again in different times of my life, I said to myself, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And that time I knew what to do. Call your sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And he just told me I was going to have to hang on, because we can't go back to the judge asking for a different deal. We got a hell of a deal right now. So, and we'll get you out of that house, and we'll get you to a men's recovery center, or we'll do something, but you're just going to have to hang on and pray. Pray for God to support your recovery. I thought that was awful weak advice, because I was hoping he'd give me something a little better than that.
Right.
And a week later, I went and did the sentencing, and they took me back in the room. And my listeners know a story so much they probably can tell it. I went back in the room, and you have to sign the papers back behind the curtain first, and then they come out and do the play where you stand out in front of the judge and he slams the gavel and all that crap. So I walked back in there, and as I'm reading that piece of paper, it said, my sentence was going to be a year of home incarceration to be served at, and it had my home address listed there, which is not, they were adamant that I wasn't going to do it here. And I panicked again. That swell of panic, not unlike the time I saw the guy outside the door with the AA.
Right.
My head is gone. When you said you drove down the road with the resentment, you're 20 miles past your exit. The same kind of dynamic is where I am. I having an out of body experience of some sort.
Yeah.
And I'm panicking because they've made a mistake. Now, I didn't see it, and I did the same thing. I do not remember, Beth. I do not remember standing up there in front of the judge and doing all that formal part of it. I don't even remember. What I remember was breaking out into daylight after that with that. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Oh, yes, I do. Call Christopher. And I called him, and I tell him this, you're not going to believe it, Christopher. They screwed it up bad. They put my home address on the paperwork, and he starts laughing. And
that'd piss you off.
Going, yeah, because that would happen, and I would get mad. And he still will say things to me and make me mad, but I come down quicker. I course correct faster today.
Right.
And he said, you know what that is, don't you? And I said, no, what is it? And he said, what have you been praying for all week? And I thought, he told me to pray for God to support my recovery. And I had some people in AA tell me that this is a program of rigorous honesty, and I needed to go down there and tell them that they've made a mistake. And my sponsor said that would be undoing God's work. And I spent my home incarceration here.
That's awesome.
And it's some people might say that's a coincidence, right? You said that word a little bit ago. I don't believe that. And the other thing about being around here is, let's say I used to believe in coincidences. I used to believe in them. There's been too damn many of them.
Yeah. To
not believe today. And as that miracle list grows with items in it like that, well, that brings that, like my step 2 gets stronger and stronger as I come to believe that this thing is really working for me. That it really is doing what it says they promised me it would do.
Yep.
And then because of that, I gained this more reliance on leaning on it, right? And I begun to be reliant upon this power greater in myself, rather than just hoping that things are going to work out for Dan. I can travel lighter with the assumption that God didn't bring me this far to dump me off, and whatever looks like might be a bit difficult situation at the moment has some purpose. And my job is to walk through it with grace and humility and carry on one day at a time. Right. And it just grows and grows and grows.
And what I find too is things that used to be a disaster are like not such a big deal anymore.
Yep.
Like a catastrophe. And
we catastrophize stuff. That's the right word? I'm not.
Yeah. Things that
and we suffer from big
like
dealism.
God, spilled milk at my house was the end of the world. Now it's like, I can walk through the death, my father's death, my sister died sober, just what my daughter's drug abuse, and she was arrested. Here I am, Polly Prissy Pence from the suburbs, in the courtroom. They bring my daughter out in shackles. I mean, I was able to walk through all those things, and
that's the kind of things. And that's another thing I see over and over again. people walking through the most difficult situations
Mm-hmm.
with grace, over and over and over again in here,
Yep.
and myself included. And it
Yep.
feels like that same out of body thing, because I remember
Mhm.
old Dan used to make every big deal out of everything, like you
Oh,
just did.
yes.
And here he
Everything.
is, and he ain't no more.
Right.
And it's like, hey, hold on, what's going on here?
Right.
And that
Right.
does get me to talk, another word around is that imposter syndrome and some things.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a con man all my life. That's how I got a lot of them pills. Is sometimes I didn't have to break in your house. I could con you into letting me in the door.
Wow. Yeah.
And and then once in a while that pops up in here, this old thinking, is this what's going on in my life today? Another con game? Or is
Right.
this for real?
Right.
And as time goes by, more and more faith is, I don't have any lack of it today, the faith that this is for real. But it's that guy on my left shoulder that keeps on wanting to poke me and tell me bullshit once in a while, and
Once in a while,
you'll get me
but
listen
it's
to him
less.
longer sometimes than other times. Sometimes I just tell him to shut up as soon as he starts talking.
Yeah. My friend Ed says his brain is a bullshit factory. This side makes it. This side buys it.
Yeah, that is another great one. Yeah. That speaker I talked about earlier, Scott Lee, he said something that hit me real good a long time ago, and it was pretty basic too. That I am not responsible for my thoughts.
Exactly. They're like the weather. They
But
come
I
in.
am responsible for how long I think them.
Exactly. My thoughts and feelings, they're like the weather. They come in, they go out. I do not have to respond and act out. And I thought that I was being authentic. Okay. When every feeling I had, I'm mercurial, okay. And every feeling I had acted out. And God, it's exhausting.
Yeah. Do you meditate?
Yes, I try.
It doesn't matter, right? It's kind of like the rest of this. It doesn't matter that we're no good at it or whatever.
But
And I think that's
when you try,
practicing.
yeah, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah, and it's practicing letting the clouds go by in life.
Exactly, exactly. I always go to a beach. I'm on a beach. I'm walking on the beach with Jesus and Mary, and we're just walking along.
Yeah.
Like I would walk with my daughter and a friend.
Yep. I find that some of the activities that I've loved is more. I love hunting. I am a hunter. I love it. But what I found is that I love sitting up in a tree, soaking up that natural energy out there. It never really was about the hunting. It never was. And some long time ago, I stopped killing stuff anyway, but I still go hunting. And I realized it's the same kind of thing. It's a meditation in some sense. I'm sitting there in silence.
Yep.
Myself quiet in most peaceful places you could ever imagine. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was craving back then, but didn't know it.
Exactly.
So like now when I do it with intention, it's even better.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I lost through my drinking and drugging. I looked like I was hunting, but really I was getting smashed out at the cabin.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And only because my ego didn't want anybody to think I wasn't going to get up in the morning, because that's what you do when you hunt. I would drag my sorry ass out into the woods under some tree and lay there, and then come back in a few hours later. Did you see anything? No, or yes. Or lie about it and tell a story about something I did see while I'm sleeping.
Right.
And there's some other things, that I thought I liked. I used to think I liked golf. I found out in sobriety I don't really like golf. It was only the drinking that I liked about golf. So that fell off and has never come back. Watching sports on TV was one that fell off and never come back. But some things like hunting and a few other things, those things have come back, and now with some power behind them, they've become way more powerful than, it's a spiritual experience every time I go out. And I love to do it. I tell people I'm a pretend deer hunter. If you saw me walking out in the woods, you saw me get out of the truck and walk out through there, you'd say that guy's a deer hunter. But, no, he's gonna go. I said he's gonna go 25 foot up in a tree and read a book is what he's gonna do.
He's a deer. He's a meditator. He's a hunting meditator.
Yeah. And with my hunting community, I was on a guys hunting podcast not long ago. They called it Project Mindfully Outdoors. They're kind of like harnessing that energy of that. and the communion of the men around the campfire, much like my home group that meets on Tuesday nights, but we don't have a campfire.
Right.
And being able to get vulnerable with one another, and and so I see there's other people doing what I'm doing, same way.
Yeah.
I had another blessing in my life, is that we have some acreage out in Orange County, Indiana, out in the middle of nowhere, and I drank there a lot. We built we built a wonderful log cabin out there, and I had a beer in my hand probably all day while we were doing that, and but I've turned the channel, and the energy is completely different. Now I have men's retreats out there, and that's where I take guys to do fifth steps. I have this magical place where we go up there and spend the night. And been blessed to have done quite a few of them, and completely changed the energy of the place. This whole energetic field thing, about what we bring around us, and there's an aura around you.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
You meet a stranger and they open up to you like you're,
Yeah.
and now I've gotten used to it, now that I understand and able to receive that.
Well, it's when they talk about they've got the light, we've got the light.
Yep.
And it's the light of God.
Yep, it is. Yep. And you see it. Another line in the book says it was the eyes of the men. And today, when I'm walking around or when I go, I can see when the lights are on in somebody and when they're not.
Yep.
Go to the grocery store and take inventory on how many lights you see that's on.
Right. Right.
Not that I'm taking inventory, but that I think that's what we mean when this thing about spiritual awakening. It is awaken my spirit. What happened when I was a little kid is my spirit got stepped on. It got
exactly. Our spirits got, they got, covered up.
The 12 steps, clean that up, and
and
reinflate it.
And our light is no longer under a bushel.
And I used to reject everything spiritual, even though the inside was the fundamental idea, though, because like when my son was in the hospital after being just born, I was down the hallway crying in the bathroom, asking God to please help my little boy. I'll quit. I'll do anything. I'll stop drinking if you will help my little boy. And, he helped him, and he's still piping around today, but 2 or 3 days later, maybe not even that much. I don't know. That was 18 years ago. So I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But, I was back to my old stuff. So every time I got in a pinch, and I've heard a guy say that, when the car is careening off the side of the icy road, or the soldiers down in the foxhole with bullets flying over top of him, or a dad is sitting in the hospital, you're going, God, please help me.
Right. And God doesn't get mad about that either. Here's people who are like, God, there's no God, God sucks, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as the shit hits the fan, oh God help me.
Pray for me.
Right. And God isn't like, hell no, you didn't blah, blah. God's like, yay, yay, here you come, yay.
Yeah. My sponsor tells a story. The most effective prayer he ever made had more F words in it than he would say in a normal week. And the next day, the world switched over, and he had one of his miracles, after doing that, airing it out. I believe that God don't care about the words I say.
No. And,
inside of my heart.
Right. God, God doesn't care about how I say it, what I'm wearing, where I am. These things, they just don't matter.
Yep, they don't. And it's number one, a hurdle for getting in here. It's getting past that thing. We're actually allowing you and giving you permission to create your own higher power. We're giving you permission to, and God, people will come in and go, no, thank you.
Is dying for you to do it. He's like, come on, here I am. You're in the wrestling ring and you're getting your ass kicked, and God's over there, tap me, tap me, tap me. And we don't tap him. We're like, oh, I'm getting my ass kicked. And God's like,
I'll handle this. I'll handle this.
I'm okay.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah. And God wants nothing more than for us to ask for him, her, it to be with us. That's all God wants. And that's what I tell my sponsees all the time. God loves you so much. So I wish you can't even imagine how much God loves you, and God has been waiting and waiting for you to come.
Yep.
God is so happy.
Yep. You get somebody with kids, it's a real effective one. They're going, do you love your kid?
Right.
And say, yeah. Well, how much? And I'll say, well, this is not even close to like what your higher power loves you by.
Right. And I always sometimes I gotta say, remember when they were babies and they were, when they were really cute and before they started talking back, that when you looked at that being and you're like, I have so much love for this person that God, yeah, and just like you said, God has that 1,000 times.
Ad infinitum. Yep, infinitum, however they say it.
Ad infinitum.
Yeah, but it's the biggest hurdle.
Well, because people have been trained, they've been conditioned
faulty training.
They've been, yeah.
It's I always heard somebody say one time, two hardest people to sponsor are hardcore atheists and born again Christians.
Right.
Dug into their thing, and that's another that's another one of these, I don't know, spiritual axiom, I don't know what the right term is, but you have to be willing to let go your old ideas. It says that in a whole bunch of places.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean your idea is not any good. That's not what it's saying. But
and it doesn't mean that you're no good.
To be open, and that open-mindedness, that is that key component to doing this. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people circle back to the religion of their childhood.
Yeah.
A lot of people do.
Starts to make sense.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people go to completely another. It doesn't matter. I think it's the same thing. One of the metaphors is like every language has a different word for water. Mm-hmm. But we don't argue about that. If
right.
we don't get no pissing contest about where if that's aqua or whatever the other word.
Right. What is it?
You say God or whatever term you want to use there, and we get all bumped up about this grunt noise we make. That's all it really is. It's a coordinated grunt that we communicate with, and we put so much weight on the very word, the G word or whatever it is. I'm convinced that it's all the same. It's all one.
Oh, absolutely. It's all the same spirit. And however,
everybody needs it. It's all the same gift. Everybody needs it tied with a different color bow.
Yep. I watched a guy this morning, an Orthodox Jew, praying in the airport. And I was just wow, just watching. He had the book, he put this shawl on, this little thing on his head. I'm like, damn. That is some serious dedication.
Yeah, right out in front of God and everybody.
I so admired it. I'm like, wow, I am so down with anybody that is willing, to make that much of an effort. So,
yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
It is.
I love this seat I'm sitting in today, and my recovery absolutely means more to me than any single thing. And I know I need to keep it in that front spot. A lot of failures here have led to, like I said earlier, what doesn't work, stop doing, and what does work, keep doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm just not willing to stop doing this. I'm not willing to give up the life that I have today for anything.
Nope. Me too.
Well, got any closing thoughts?
No, we've been on this talk. We've been on this talk for a while.
Yeah. I tell my guests, I said, they'll say, well, how long are you going to be? And I said, well, a lot of them run 2 hours. And they're like, amazing. I won't have that much to say. And then at the end, because I have a wood shop in my backyard, and I had a table in there that I built, and it was a podcast table, and I would record, have people come. My first guests were my sponsees. Mm-hmm. I had them come tell their stories and talk to me because they couldn't really say no. And and we do them out there, and you can tell when it runs out of gas. There's usually something. Right. For a long time, there would be a sigh out of my guest at the end. At some point, like towards the end, they go. And I know that was the signal that we're done here. Right. And they say, you have any idea how long we've been talking? No. Well, 2 hours and 15 minutes. No way. Right. Yeah, you're looking at a clock right there, dude. You've been paying attention to it. I love doing this. It juices me up.
Yeah, me
love
too.
talking
Exactly.
recovery.
I could talk about the program and God all day long, and especially the spiritual aspect of really, I wish people could understand how much God loves them and how
Like somebody said once, I
how
can't really get with the spiritual aspect of the program as well. There really is no other aspect.
right. That's yeah. I mean, that's it. So,
Yep. It's a little bit of a, I don't know. I don't want to get too many AA police on me.
mhm.
But I'll talk about me. I kind of got tricked into this. I didn't really know. They were telling me some stuff, and I
Mhm.
worked these steps, like they said, and this thing developed and it continues to evolve and develop. And in the beginning, I wasn't necessarily sold on it.
Mm-mm.
Got tricked. I'm a registered yoga teacher, and the girl who took me to yoga the first time tricked me into it.
Right.
Didn't tell
Well,
me where we were going, and I walked in there and fell in love with it, So
mhm.
Dan lots of times has to be tricked into doing something because I think I know
Sometimes
better.
we do. That's right, because our that the set aside prayer, right? I think I know. I think I know everything.
Yep.
I think I know.
Yep. Yep. Some of what I know for certain ain't true.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well,
Well,
I always ask people if they have any closing thoughts or.
I'm just so happy that we got to do this. It's just a miracle.
Yeah, well, it's always what I feel, and I know is that every time I do this, a lot of people I do, a fair number of my shows are people I know. In that case, I get to know them better here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get to know somebody better. That's part of another one of my goals in life today is to get to know people better.
Mm-hmm.
And those I don't know, I walk out of here with a new friend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You and I were complete strangers.
Yep.
And look at
That's some of the magic of this thing.
yep.
It's the same concept of walking into a meeting anywhere in the country or the world.
Yep.
You walk in and you can feel that you're home.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
No matter where you're at. I've been to meetings in Thailand and Japan,
Wow.
and where you couldn't understand a word they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't matter.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking your time out of your evening and sitting with me and knocking around these concepts we call recovery. I love doing it. And there's a thing I've talked about lately is that, when we do this, things come to light for me, right? That I didn't know or didn't think of, or, and knocking around these concepts rattles out some more gold. And I love to be here to pick it up when it rattles out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I say two things when I close this podcast. And as I said earlier, when things work, I keep doing them. I've stole both these lines, and everything I know about recovery has been handed to me. I didn't come here with any of this.
Exactly.
None of it. I don't lay claim to anything I'm saying. I've borrowed it from other people.
Yep.
One of them is a bottom of an email I get, but they changed it now. It says, if you're not having a blast in your recovery, it's your own damn fault, because it's available. It is. Mm-hmm. And I just thank everybody for allowing Beth and I to participate in our recoveries tonight in this manner. Mm-hmm. Peace out.
Peace out.